I get asked a lot, like, how did I start Loop and what's the story behind the Loop way? And it's been 6 months since I launched Loop. And I've been hesitant to tell my story because it seems kind of woo-woo. And I haven't always been somebody who's a woo-woo person or believed in all this stuff, but probably in the last couple of years, I've definitely leaned more into my spiritual side and trusting the universe and realizing that there's a plan for everybody and that you're not in control. And part of that surrender, I think, has really opened up a big world to me. I finally went to a place called the Hoffman Process, and I was so scared to go because I knew when I left that I couldn't lie to myself anymore about where I was and what I needed to do and the hard choices that I needed to make. And so the Hoffman Process is a week-long retreat, and everything's taken away from you. So you have no cell phone, you have really nothing. I mean, they don't want you to work out. They want you to really use that week to be with yourself. And it is such a gift to yourself and everybody around you because you have no other responsibilities but to really heal yourself. And the premise of it is we all have these patterns that we've inherited from our parents generationally. And some of these patterns work for you, and some of these patterns do not serve you. And so they help provide a place where you identify the patterns that don't work for you and a process to work on slowly eliminating them from your life. But through that process, you learn a lot about yourself, and some things you love and some things you really don't. Welcome to Loop Podcast. The content shared here is for informational and educational purposes only and is not intended as medical advice. Throughout the show, I'll be sharing my own story and personal wellness tools and hacks that have worked for me, and my guests will share what's worked for them. These conversations are based on personal experience and are not a substitute for professional medical guidance. Always consult your healthcare provider before sharing any new treatment, supplement, or wellness routine. We'll be exploring mostly peptide-related therapies and other emerging health tools. But remember, everyone's health needs are different, and what works for one person may not be right for another. By listening, you agree that neither I nor any guest in this podcast is offering personalized medical advice. Thank you for being here, and let's keep learning and growing together. Welcome to Loop Podcast, where we dive deep into all things health, wellness, and fitness, plus the fascinating world of peptides. Each episode, we bring you insights from experts and guests from across the industry to help you optimize your health and longevity. I'm your host, Steph. Now let's jump in. All right, welcome back to the Loop Podcast. So today I'm going to do something a little bit different. And to be honest, I've been hesitating doing it, and it seems silly, like when I really think about it, because it is a story and it is my truth and it's part of my journey. But I get asked a lot, like, how did I start Loop and what's the story behind the Loop way? And it's been 6 months since I launched Loop, and I've been hesitant to tell my story because it seems kind of woo-woo, and I haven't always been somebody who's a woo-woo person or believed in all this stuff, but probably in the last couple of years, I've definitely leaned more into my spiritual side and trusting the universe and realizing that there's a plan for everybody and that you're not in control. And part of that surrender, I think, has really opened up a big world to me. And so I talk a lot about how during COVID, I left Hawaii and moved to California and really rearranged and changed my life. And it was super scary doing it. Hawaii was a place that was easy and safe, but it was also a place that felt very small, not expansive, and honestly, I couldn't breathe. So I'd say my journey really started kind of back to myself when I had the courage to move my family from Hawaii to Newport. And it wasn't met with, oh, yay, you're moving. My family was really shocked. They weren't happy. They loved having their grandchildren there. My brother and my sister loved having their nieces there. And I think people looked at it like it was my family. It was very selfish. Like, you're moving them somewhere else. And there was something in me that just knew that this was the best thing for not only me, but for my children and my family. So that's where my journey really started. And I knew my marriage was falling apart, which, if anyone has been there, is a very, very scary place to be. And it starts really in denial because who wants to ever get divorced? You want to keep your family together for your children. And I knew that it wasn't changing and I was trying really hard and it wasn't working. And I finally went to a place called the Hoffman Process, and I was so scared to go because I knew when I left that I couldn't lie to myself anymore about where I was and what I needed to do and the hard choices that I needed to make. And so the Hoffman Process is a week-long retreat, and everything's taken away from you. So you have no cell phone, you have really nothing. I mean, they don't want you to work out. They want you to really use that week to be with yourself. And it is such a gift to yourself and everybody around you because you have no other responsibilities but to really heal yourself. And the premise of it is we all have these patterns that we've inherited from our parents generationally. And some of these patterns work for you and some of these patterns do not serve you. And so they help provide a place where you identify the patterns that don't work for you and a process to work on slowly eliminating them from your life. But through that process, you learn a lot about yourself, and some things you love and some things you really don't. But I did leave knowing that I needed to make some hard decisions and I needed to get divorced. And so that's really where my journey of kind of picking my heart, I would say, started, because it was going to be harder to stay married for me now knowing who I was, and it was going to be to leave and restructure my whole life for my children, which was terrifying, and for my partner, who I still had deep care for. He's a wonderful man, but it just wasn't serving me anymore. So that's really where my journey started, and the evolution of where I became to be the woman that could start Loop started there. So fast forward a little bit, I'm in the process of reorganizing my life, getting divorced, getting my kids acclimated in California, and I wasn't working for the first time in my life. And my therapist was really clear, hey, Steph, you need to give all your energy and your focus onto your children and to healing and to getting a new life set for them. And so with that, I didn't have really anything to hide in. I had been somebody who had worked my entire life. Even when I had kids, I owned restaurants, I owned fitness studios, I was a coach. I was always doing something. And I think in doing something, you also can really hide and you don't have to face things because you're busy. I don't know if anyone has been busy where you don't slow down enough to really look at what's going on. And so I was really challenged to focus on my children and myself and to start to feel things. So instead, I didn't have my work. I decided to put all my energy into exercise. And that was a way to cope. And it was just my way to really get through my divorce. And I was using it almost as a drug. Like some people drink, some people do a lot of other things. And I was just like really like running myself literally into the ground. And it worked for a while, but when you numb yourself and you don't have to feel, sometimes actually things get pushed down and pushed down and pushed down until they kind of come out when you don't want them to come out. But anyway, so this was kind of the pattern that I was in to get through everything. And feeling a little more eager to work, but was told just to kind of stay in the whole process. So fast forward to, a year and a half ago, I was skiing in Aspen and my body was really tired. And it was tired because I was in emotional stress from my divorce. And I was also, my body was just, I had beaten it up. I was not giving it days off. I wasn't giving it a break. I was not listening to it. I was not doing the pillars of health in the sense of like how important recovery is. And I went out skiing on a day. I knew I was tired. I said I was tired. And this is kind of where the woo-woo starts. And even when I say it out loud, it's really hard for me to believe that this is what happened. But it was a beautiful Bluebirds day. I was skiing with my boyfriend and we had knee-deep powder, and we were going to meet my parents after to go skiing, and we were just going to do a few runs by ourselves. And I did my first run down and I said to my boyfriend, oh my gosh, like I need to be cautious. Like I'm really tired today. I never say that. I went up on the chairlift. I pictured myself in a knee brace doing something terrible to my knee, walking around town being like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did this, which is very odd. I got off the lift and my boyfriend said, do you want to do this like big powdery deep run? And I should have said no, but I said, okay. And I said, stay close to me. I never say that. He's a very good skier, much faster than me. Halfway down the mountain, I didn't even fall. I turned left, or I tried to turn left, and my skis would not turn with the deep powder. My knee went out and in. In that second, I knew I had done something really bad to myself. And I literally yelled like profanities. And my boyfriend heard me. He's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "No." Like I knew whatever I did was not like a little tweak. It was like a big thing to my knee. I was in no pain, but I knew something slid out and slid back in that was not normal. So he said, "Can you kind of make one turn and try to get down to me?" And I could. I felt it go out and in again. And so I just sat there. And he was further enough down that he couldn't get to me. So he went down, got ski patrol, and long story short, got put in a toboggan and taken down the mountain. And at that point, I was oddly calm. Like I kind of surrendered and was like, whatever happened to me, I clearly willed it. Like, how do you think of something which is terrifying and then it happens? Like that's never happened to me. And went down into the doctor down at the base of the mountain, and they did a few tests and they said, "Yep, you tore your ACL. It's pretty clear." And I cried for a second of just like panic as I got that diagnosis, because I do know intrinsically I hadn't been through one, but I knew ACL was a long recovery. And went back to our unit, and my parents were there and just kind of said, "All right, like this is probably going to be the next 6, 8 months, year of my life, is trying to figure out how do I operate with, a really bad knee." So got back to Newport and quickly found the right doctor to do the surgery. A friend helped me get in, and they did another MRI and realized I also tore my meniscus. And at that point is when the waterworks came on, and I cried nonstop. And I think it was this like, the tears are tears of sorrow, of like, oh my, and fear of like, how am I going to get through this? Because when you tear your meniscus, it's very different. You're on crutches for a month. So when you go in for your surgery for your ACL, you come out, it's a long recovery, but you're off crutches within a couple of days. Being on crutches for a month, for anyone who has not been on crutches for a month, is one of the hardest, most humbling things you'll ever experience. You really know what it feels like to have a disability because you have no weight on one leg. And I had to crawl up and down stairs. I was really lucky that it wasn't my driving leg, so I could still drive my car. But to get food, I had to hop around the kitchen. You had to literally take a bowl and put it on the counter. And I was a single mom, so I was alone. My mom flew in to help me. But for the most part, my children had to kind of help take care of me. And I dove into physical therapy like it was my job. And through that process, I was put in the pool really early on to help. And I found just this like magic in the slowdown. And I found that all of a sudden I was crying a lot. And it was like tears of joy because I was feeling things again. Like I'd see a rainbow and I would cry. I'd listen to a podcast in my pool workout and cry. And life just slowed down and I couldn't numb myself anymore. I had to feel all the pain of my divorce, all the pain of my move, all the pain of people not supporting me, all the choices that I had made. And it was like I was finally feeling things for the first time because I could not numb myself in a workout, and it was terrifying. But I was enjoying the whole process, and I was slowly realizing that this accident happened for me, not to me. And I wasn't a victim, and I was somebody who was actually healing in so many more ways than just my knee by going through this process. And I still look back on it and I smile, like I picture myself in the pool. And it's like hard. It's hard to do pool work if you've ever had to do it, but it was such a blessing in getting me into a meditative state. So I'm in the process of growing and healing, and slowly I was coming back to where I could slowly get back to the gym. And about 6 or 8 months later, I was feeling much more like myself as I was built back. And I had been wanting to do a retreat since the Hoffman Process for a while. And I had gotten the green light from my therapist. Hey, I think you can start working again. The kids are great. And I was having that itch that I really wanted to do something. And so I started the whole process saying, I want to go and be a coach, but I want to coach on what was called chapters. I had the whole brand name picked out. I had hired a videographer. I created a whole video on it. And I really wanted to teach women and men like how to move from one chapter in their life to the next, similar of what I'd gone through my divorce. It could have been like kids going to college, having a baby, you name it. I wanted to do my coaching not on health anymore, and I wanted to do with really helping people, I guess, as a life coach, move from one chapter to the next. Hired the most amazing coach, Christine Hassler, that I still have today, who I love. She's going to come on our podcast and just kind of work through the whole process. And I had this odd failure to launch. I couldn't do it. It did not feel authentic to me. It didn't feel like that was my voice to be had. It didn't feel like I wanted to do it. And I had every excuse in the book not to launch my coaching practice. It was ready to go. I had a website. I had it all done. I had my branding, and I could not do it. And she kind of said to me, like, well, why do you feel like you have to do this? And my old patterning, well, I did all these things. Like, it's all ready to go. I spent all this money. And I decided to go on this retreat. And how my retreat came into play was also very interesting. It's with Jessica Zwag, and she wrote The Spiritual Hustler, and she was doing a retreat in Mexico, and she was attracting a lot of high, powerful women who were CEOs of their company, who wanted to rebrand, who wanted to step into their feminine power, still be a CEO, but still have part of all the divine of being a woman. And it was just called to me. And I was on Instagram searching up 88 Lionsgate. So if any of you guys knows what Lionsgate is, a big portal. It's the day my boyfriend was born. And so I was trying to understand more about Lionsgate, which is a little bit of where my woo-woo kind of starts if you don't believe in all of this stuff. And so all of a sudden, this beautiful woman, Jessica, comes onto Instagram, and she's talking about this one-day event she's going to do for Lionsgate and how excited she was. And then I was like, who is this woman? And I started following her and listening to her podcast. And she starts talking about this retreat she's hosting at the end of January. And I thought, wow, this is going to be a really cool experience. Let me kind of look into it. Well, I saw the price of this retreat, and I literally said to myself, fuck off, Jessica. Like, that is ridiculous. Like, who asks for that? Who would pay that? I'm not doing that. And I kind of just let it go. And then she kept coming back into my feed and just coming back into my feed. And I was on a walk one day. She's talking about the retreat. And I thought, oh, maybe this could be good for me. I could write it off as a business expense. It's about branding. It'll help me with my business. And I kind of justified it all in my head, this crazy cost. And then I thought to myself, maybe my sister will go with me. She's a high-power real estate agent. She needs to get more in her feminine. This is going to help her. So I get on a call with Jessica, which was awesome. And I hung up and I said, okay, irregardless if my sister's going to go or not, I'm going to go. I'm going to justify the cost. I'm going to go. And then I thought to myself, even if this retreat is kind of BS, I want to see what other 18 women are either dumb like me to pay to come to this or smarter than I know and are coming to this for a reason. I want to meet these women, and these women are going to really help me decide if I'm going to do this coaching company or not, or if I do, they're going to help me with my brand. They're going to introduce me to people. I'll be on their podcast. I just really looked at like, I'm going to use this as a business opportunity. So my sister and I go down to this retreat in Mexico, and I'm excited. And I get to the airport, and I come out, and it's just myself, and I see this beautiful 6-foot princess-looking woman, and there's a guy had my name on the sign, and sure enough, she was part of the retreat, and we're standing there, and I'm literally like in my workout clothes. Like, I kind of look like this, and I have this girl who has got like a crown of like pearls on her head and could be the antithesis of me, and her name was Erin. And she's a stylist from New York and just fabulous. Loved her and just owned who she was and what she looked like. And she was just making a statement and feeling coming on the trip. And then I had another gal who came in, and she was a tech girl. And we get into the car and we head to about an hour drive to our hotel. And Erin and I start chatting, and we start chatting about peptides. And she's on some peptides and about her gut, and I light up, and we're talking about peptides, and we're talking about peptides, and we're talking about peptides. So fast forward, we get to the retreat. It's amazing, and I find that I'm talking about peptides a lot on this retreat to the different women from all areas of life, all over the country, and don't think much about it. Now, here's where it gets a little bit woo-woo. So Jessica is very woo-woo, and she is very much about different energies and energetic fields, and had done a lot of work with the Pleiadians in Egypt. And I could definitely sense that there was a lot of energy around this group. We were outside of Tulum that had the Mayans. And so there was kind of like Hawaii, I believe. And I've had a lot of experience with the energy of Hawaii. Hawaii is alive. There's spirits there. And I do believe in that stuff. And you can feel the energy if you really tap into it. So I started feeling the energy of the Mayans and where we were pretty early on. And I remember it was our second day, and we were doing this exercise where we had to take these little pyramids and kind of cut and paste, almost like it was when you're doing a mood board, or you're doing like, you want to do your manifestation board. And it was talking about like everything from like our brand and what it represents to who we are, and then what do we want to be known for. And we were sitting there in a big group. So imagine like 20 women in a circle with like tables. It was a big kind of U, and people were going around and explaining what these different parts of the pillar was. And I got really overwhelmed with emotion. And I turned to Erin, she was next to me, and I'm like, I don't think I'm going to get through this without crying. I don't really cry, to be honest, outside of like my experience with my knee. I'm not a big crier. Well, I wasn't until recently. And I think now I cry a lot, but in terms of just emotion and feeling things. So it gets to my turn, and I say to the group, I said, I just have this really overwhelming feeling of, how did I get here? Like, how did I get here? And it was kind of like all of the last year and a half to 2 years was fast forwarding in my head of like in Hawaii and here. Like, how did I end up on an opposite coast of the United States with this group of women on this retreat? How am I here? And it started something, and I started crying, and just like, I felt so much gratitude that I was there, and that with this woman, and there was something much bigger than me happening. And at that point, I didn't really know what it was, but I was very overwhelmed with emotion. So get through that part of it. That night, we take a van or bus ride into Tulum, and we go into these Mayan caves, and we do the sound bowl healing. And it was a long sound bowl. And to be honest, I wasn't totally into it. I was kind of in and out and getting tired. And all of a sudden, I had this weird feeling like, oh, my Nana's with me. Like, I felt my grandmother's like spirit with me. And I'm like, oh, that's kind of weird. Didn't think much of it. And it ended. I wanted to go home. I wanted to go back to bed. Long ride back. Next morning, get up, and I wanted to work out. We had a breathwork class early in the morning, and I did a little workout before that. And I thought, I felt my grandma again. I said, this is so weird. My Nana's here. I don't get that very often, but I was very close to this grandma. She was from the East Coast, very, very strong woman. And we were close, but she was tough on me. I wouldn't say she was a walk in the park, but my soul really resonated with her. So I thought, oh, this is weird. My Nana's here again. We go into the breathwork class, and I don't know if any of you have done breathwork before. I'd done breathwork before, but I had never had any powerful movements or things that have shifted from it. I was like, oh, I feel better, but I didn't understand the strength or the power of breathwork until this moment. And this is where the woo-woo gets very woo-woo, so bear with me. So we go into the breathwork class, we're laying there, and our guide just starts taking us, and I immediately, I don't know how, just go into focusing on my breath, and I let go. And it was just crying, sweating profusely, and I was in it. And this was 90 minutes. And in this 90 minutes, I now have learned what happened, but at the time I didn't really know. I was just in it, and I was having all these different downloads and visions. And it was visions of me and my girls, and kind of like lights and halos around us, and just talking, and it was me crying, just talking about how sorry I am for our divorce, and sorry that I left their father, and the trauma that it has caused them. And they were supporting me and saying, Mom, we're fine. And all this healing was going on in this breath work, in this moment, in this visualization with my girls here. And then I was with my boyfriend and all of his kids, and how we were bringing and healing and bringing everybody together. And it was like, there was just so much light and aura around us as we were going through this. And then the final, I guess, vision that I had was at the end, it was my grandmother. And she basically kind of came into my body, and I was crying for her because she'd had breast cancer and she was very deformed. She had a double mastectomy, and it's before they had reconstruction surgery. And I thought, in this moment, I was crying, saying, you had to be so strong and brave to fight your cancer and to be a woman with all this deformity. And I was just really, I mean, at this point, I'm like shaking my hands. I don't know if you've done breath work, but you have all this energy in your body that you're trying to release as you are literally crying and sweating and going through all these strange things. And she says to me, stop playing small. Stop being small. You are like me. You're a strong woman. I am here for you, but I'm sick of watching you hide and play small, and it's time to step into who you are and knock it off, basically, and was having this stern conversation with me. And slowly at that point, I all of a sudden like kind of get woken up, and I open my eyes, and I'm so tired and drained and just drenched in sweat. And the group is leaving the room. I'm the type of person, like, I'm so self-conscious sometimes. Like, I would have never had a group circle up, have a whole other conversation, end the breath work, and leaving while I'm still in my whole process. And so a woman comes over and, helps me and she's, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, I was not okay. I was terrified. I didn't know what just happened to me. I didn't know where I was, why I was dripping in sweat, and really what the whole process was like. And so she kind of explained things to me and was like, "Why don't you go to your room and write?" And so I journaled. I called my mom. I called my boyfriend and explained what it was. And it had sounded very similar to people who go through a plant medicine experience. It's not as easy, I've learned, to have it with breath. And most people have to go through a plant medicine experience to then be able to do that with breath. Somehow I got myself to that state. And I left a message for my coach and was like, read everything. And I said, "Please, I need to understand what all this means because I don't know what this means." And we've end the retreat the next day. And I'm still definitely feeling like, what was that? What has happened? I felt different. I felt lighter. I felt healed. And I was still in the process of understanding what had just happened to me. Fast forward, my boyfriend comes down to join me and we end up having a great day. And then I started to not feel very good. And I went into the room and I got really sick. I felt like I had the flu. And have you ever had that flu or the sickness feeling where you want to reach for your eye mask that's next to you, but it's too far to reach? You feel that weak. And I thought to myself, how am I going to get back to California? I'm really sick. And one of the girls from the retreats, Natalie, messages me, and she works with a lot of energy work. She's works with a lot of CEOs on how to work with your sign and the energy of the universe and your astrology to do your life's work. And so I said, "I'm actually not okay. I'm really, really sick." And she goes, "Oh, you're not sick. Your body is just now integrating to where your soul went. So this is just an integration period. You're not sick. Your body's just catching up because your soul is now operating and living in a different dimension because you have gone through all this breath work." And I'm thinking, what is she talking about? This sounds so woo-woo. What dimension am I living in? And what do you mean I'm going to be fine tomorrow? Because I feel like I'm on my deathbed. So she had me repeat and say a bunch of things out loud. And so she said, "Say this tonight before you go to bed and keep saying it. Make yourself eat some food and go to sleep and you'll be fine." I say these things that she's basically had me say to talk to my body and to help the integration. Was able to get enough energy to go down and have some soup, went to bed. I woke up, I'm not joking, fine. Went into Tulum the next day and had the best day, nothing had ever happened to me. And I still was like, I guess she's right. My integrations happen. What does this mean? And that's the day that my partner and I designed Loop. And we came up with the logo on our patio. And I had ended the retreat where Erin had said to me, "Girl, you need to do your coaching on peptides. You light up when you talk about this. This is your passion. Integrate your health coaching with peptides and you have something." And it's like a light bulb went on. And from that second on, Loop was born, and it was born very quickly. And a lot of people will ask, "Who designed your logo? We love your logo." Literally, we designed it on the patio of a hotel room in 2 seconds. And from there, it's kind of the rest is history. And it's taken off. And I went from somebody who would never, ever put myself on social media out there. Mara had always said to me, "Stephanie, your human design is you're supposed to have a big voice and you're supposed to lead a movement and you're supposed to talk to lots of people, not just coaching one-on-one." And I thought, I am not going to do a podcast. I am not going to go public on social media. Are you crazy? And in my whole breath work shift to being on a different vibration and frequency, I was now the girl that was able to switch to public, put myself out there, stop caring what people thought about me and say, I actually have a bigger message that I want to get out there. I want to support women. I want to have a voice. I want to talk about peptides. I want to educate. I want to talk about women really supporting each other and stop knocking each other down and not be afraid and hide, like my grandmother had said. Get out there and make a difference. And so that's my story of how I started Loop. And it has just been such a divine story, and it's just begun. It's only 6 months old. And just the people that I have attracted that work for us, we now have a staff of 10 plus, and we're growing, and they've all been called in. When I say divinely, it's true. Like I could never imagine having a team behind us that we do. And they all were meant to be part of this whole movement and this group. And I feel so blessed. I'm scared to share the story, and not because of what people are going to think of me, but because it sounds really woo-woo, but it's very true. I'm a different person. I'm living on a different energy field, and I'm so excited. I'm so happy. I love to do what I do. And I think I just also want to sit here and encourage people. Like, my story has just begun and I'm still evolving. But if you want to grow and change, put yourself out there. Try to go to a retreat or try to put yourself around other women who really are living an expansive life and expose yourself to different things. I mean, I work with Natalie on coaching me through my celestial stars about where my energy field is in the universe from the day and time I was born. It all makes sense. And she's guided me. And when I talked to her about starting Loop, she looked at my chart and all my astrology, and she's like, oh my gosh, you need to start now and you need to start fast. Everything is in your house to support you. And she was right. I've had so much support from the universe outside of my control to bring Loop to life that it's really hard to imagine. But we talk about being in flow, and I had never really been in flow in my life. I was a person who I felt like you had to work really hard and then you have results from working hard. I'm not saying I'm not working hard in Loop. I'm working hard. But there's also a sitting back and trusting the universe that the right people come in to support you at the right time in the right way. And that's what's really been guiding me. And that's what you've been seeing. So that's my story. I don't know if I'm going to put this out there, but I wanted to get it off my chest. I wanted to share it. And the journey really has just begun. And I think anyone who's listening to the podcast or being part of my journey and supporting Loop and supporting the Loop Way podcast, because I actually get to use my voice in a way that I know that I was meant to. And I'm not in my own way. I'm not scared. I'm a little nervous about it if I put this out there, but I wanted you to hear my story. I hope you found this interesting. I hope you found it maybe encouraging, inspiring. DM me. I'm happy to talk more about it, but definitely be open to the powers of the universe, because you never know. It definitely has your back when you're open to it, and you never know what your life's going to turn into. So thank you for listening, and tune in next time. Thanks for tuning in to the Loop podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe and share it with your friends. Your support helps keep the conversation going. Until next time, stay healthy, stay strong, and keep pushing forward.